Hello, my name is Catherine Bernier. I'm the Autism Mentor for the Roswell Independent School District. Please feel free to contact me with any questions, comments, or concerns you may have. Thank you. Here, we're looking at how autism is categorized into three levels based on the amount of support a person needs, rather than labeling the severity of the individual themselves. The key idea here is that autism exists on a spectrum, and these levels help professionals determine how much support someone may require in daily life, especially in areas like social communication and behavior. Level 1 is described as requiring support. Individuals at this level may appear more independent, but still need help with things like social interactions, flexibility, and organization. Level 2 is requiring substantial support. At this level, challenges with communication and behavior are more noticeable, and the individual typically needs more consistent and structured support. Level 3 is requiring very substantial support. Individuals at this level often have significant communication differences and may rely heavily on support across settings. It's important to remember that these levels are not fixed labels. A person's needs can change depending on the environment, expectations, and supports in place. On this slide, we will focus on level 1 autism, which is described as requiring support. You may sometimes hear this referred to as mild, but it's important to be cautious with that label because the challenges are still very real and can significantly impact daily life. In terms of social communication, individuals at this level are typically able to speak in full sentences. However, they may struggle with the back and forth nature of conversations. Things like reading social cues, understanding tone, or knowing how to initiate or maintain interactions can be difficult. When we look at behavior, we often see some rigidity. This might show up as a strong preference for routines, difficulty with transitions, or inflexible thinking. These patterns can affect functioning in school, home, or social settings. Even though individuals at level 1 may appear more independent, they still benefit from support, especially in navigating social situations and adapting to change. In a classroom setting, this might look like needing explicit instruction on social skills, visual supports, or help with transitions and expectations. Here, we will focus on level 2 autism, which is described as requiring substantial support. At this level, challenges with social communication are more noticeable. Individuals may use simple sentences and can communicate their basic needs, but conversations are often limited. You might also see differences in nonverbal communication, such as reduced eye contact, limited gestures, or difficulty understanding others' body language. In terms of behavior, rigidity is more apparent and tends to impact multiple settings, like both the classroom and at home. Changes in routine or unexpected transitions can be especially difficult, and individuals may show clear signs of distress when those changes occur. Shifting attention from one task to another can also be a significant challenge. Because of these factors, individuals at level 2 typically need consistent and structured support throughout the day. This might include visual schedules, predictable routines, direct instruction, and adult support to help navigate transitions and social situations. In a school setting, supports often need to be more intentional and ongoing compared to level 1, with a focus on both communication and behavior. On this slide, we'll focus on level 3 autism, which is described as requiring very substantial support. At this level, individuals experience significant challenges with communication. Some may have minimal functional speech or use only a few understandable words, while others may rely more heavily on alternative forms of communication, such as gestures, visuals, or assistive devices. Nonverbal communication is also impacted. It may be difficult for the individual to understand or use things like facial expressions, body language or eye contact in a typical way. Behaviorally, rigidity is very pronounced. Individuals may engage in repetitive actions frequently, and these behaviors can significantly interfere with daily life. Even small or unexpected changes in routine can lead to high levels of distress. Because of these needs, individuals at level 3 require intensive, ongoing support across most areas of daily functioning. This includes communication, transitions, self care, and participation in learning environments. In a school setting, this often means highly structured support, individualized strategies, and a team based approach to ensure the student can access learning and feel safe and regulated. Here, we'll discuss the term profound autism, which is not one of the three official levels defined by the DSM 5. Instead, this term is sometimes used to describe individuals with very high support needs, typically those who require continuous around the clock care. Individuals described in this way may often have minimal or no functional speech and may rely heavily on alternative forms of communication or may not use symbolic communication at all. In many cases, there may also be co occurring intellectual disabilities, which can further impact learning, independence, and daily functioning. It's important to understand that this term is still being discussed and debated within the field. Some professionals and advocacy groups use it to better highlight the needs of individuals who require the most intensive support, while others are cautious about labeling. In a school or care setting, the focus should always remain on the individual's specific needs, ensuring they have access to communication supports, a structured environment, and a highly individualized approach to learning and care. This slide highlights an important shift on how we think about autism. Traditionally, autism has been represented as a linear spectrum, almost like a straight line from mild to severe. The problem with that model is that it can lead to oversimplified and sometimes unfair comparisons between individuals. Autism isn't something that can be ranked as better or worse or neatly placed into one spot in a line. Two individuals may both be autistic but have very different strengths, challenges, and support needs. That's where the idea of a pie chart or a multi-dimensional model comes in. Instead of placing someone on a single line, this model recognizes that autism is made up of many different traits. For example, someone might have strong verbal skills but significant sensory sensitivities, while another person might have different communication needs but excel in routines or memory. This way of thinking helps us move forward to a more accurate and respectful understanding of autism. It also reminds us to look at the whole individual rather than trying to summarize them with a single label. In a classroom setting, this perspective encourages us to individualize supports because no two students will have the same exact profile of needs. Here, we will build on the idea of a pie chart model by focusing on traits rather than generic symptoms. Instead of viewing autism as a checklist of deficits, this approach breaks characteristics into different areas or slices of the pie. Each slice represents a trait, such as communication, sensory processing, flexibility, or social interaction. What's important here is that each individual's pie looks different. Some slices may be larger, meaning those traits are more prominent or require more support, while other areas may be smaller or even strengths. This helps us move away from a one size fits all mindset. Rather than assuming all autistic individuals have the same challenges, we begin to see a more nuanced, individualized profile. It also shifts our language. Instead of focusing only on symptoms, which can feel negative or clinical, we're recognizing a mix of differences, some of which may be strengths and some that may require support. In the classroom, this perspective helps us build better target supports. We can focus on the specific areas where a student needs assistance while also recognizing and building on their strengths. We will now introduce the concept of the autism wheel as a more complete way to understand the spectrum. What makes this model especially useful is that it shows how varied autism can be. Not every individual will experience all of these traits, and even when they do, the intensity can be very different. The wheel can also be used as a reflective tool. Individuals or caregivers and educators can respond to questions that help fill in or shade each section. This creates a visual representation of how strongly each trait is experienced. This kind of visual can be really helpful in understanding a person's unique profile. It allows us to quickly see areas of strengths, areas of needs, and where supports might be most beneficial. In a classroom setting, this reinforces the idea that support should be individualized. Two students with autism may have very different wheels and therefore need very different strategies to be successful. Here is an example of the results of a completed autism wheel. It also has a link to the assessment to complete on your own. Starting around the wheel, each slice highlights a different area where an autistic individual might experience differences. These include communication traits like flat or monotone speech, sensory experiences such as noise sensitivity, and social areas like difficulty with interaction or reading cues. There are also behavioral and physical expressions represented. Things like tics and fidgets, fixations or intense interests, and differences in eye contact or posture. On the emotional side, the wheel includes anxiety, depression, and sometimes outward expressions like aggression, which can often be linked to overwhelm or unmet needs. It's important to emphasize that none of these traits are universal. Not every autistic person will experience all of these, and the way they show up can be very different from one person to another. Now, looking at the colors, these aren't just for visual appeal. Each colored segment represents the relative intensity or impact of that trait for the individual being described. The further the color extends outward from the center, the more prominent or impactful the characteristic may be in that person's daily life. So, for an example, a larger section in anxiety or sensory sensitivity suggests that those areas may require more support or understanding, while smaller sections might indicate traits that are present but less impactful. This information would be very helpful in creating goals and supports in the classroom and school environment. This final slide outlines the individual facets or segments of the autism wheel. It provides a structured overview of what each area in the questionnaire is designed to assess, along with examples of how these traits may present in an individual with autism. It also highlights the potential impact these characteristics may have on the student's experience, both in school and at home. It's important to recognize that these facets do not represent the full scope of factors that may influence a student's success. Rather, they serve as an initial framework for understanding patterns of strengths and challenges. When developing goals, objectives, and accommodations, this information should be considered alongside a comprehensive set of data, including formal assessments, interviews, and direct observations. Taking a holistic approach ensures that supports are appropriately tailored to the individual needs of the student.